What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And I've caught some comments on some of my videos and other people's videos, and I've noticed some videos put out by other channels lately pushing this idea of, hey man, you can't talk about these organizations. Talking about prison gangs is dangerous. Talking about these organizations is dangerous, right? And is, some would even say is inappropriate, right? Now, and I'm not here to like to have any online beef with anybody, anything like that. That is one perspective, and a lot of people believe that way, and I'm not saying that that is wrong. Okay, um, I'd like to present a different question, and that different question is: isn't it dangerous to not talk about them? Isn't that more dangerous? And what I mean is this: there was a time when to acknowledge the existence of these organizations was a cardinal sin, right? Of course. And I'm speaking for the most part about the NF and the Mexican Mafia, but if the shoe fits, wear it. There was a time when, yeah, to acknowledge that these organizations existed in a public setting would get you got, right? And people have got behind that. It's always been interesting to me because then you see cats that are NF members with big ass Nuestra Familias tattooed all over them, or Mexican Mafia members with big old black hands all over them and M and everything else. So it's kind of like, hey, pretend like we don't exist. But when you become a member, a lot of folks are quick to decorate their body with, big old insignias that kind of show it. But I get that. When I was doing time, when I became an hermano, I had a Mongolian haircut, right? The goofy homeboy haircut, so to speak. And I cut it, right? I cut it when I got pulled, because I didn't want that extra heat, that extra tension. I really shouldn't have had it to begin with, because you don't want to attract heat regardless. But it was what it was. I was a kid. I was 19 years old, So I get that. And there was lots of rules and policies in place around, what tattoos individuals could get when you're behind the wall and all this other stuff. So there was that effort to keep these groups clandestine. Right. Again, even though it's kind of hypocritical because the folks in it, I never met an NF member who did not make very clear to me that they were an NF member within the first 60 seconds of me encountering them. I take that back. So Hobo and Smiley from Sanjo, right? Smiley Ramos would be the exceptions, although they weren't operating actively in that role, but they were in prison. And there was old school B numbers. Probably the most dangerous, most sharp people on the yard in terms of that stuff goes, if we're being honest. But they didn't push that line. They didn't do that. They're actually kind of humble, easy to get along with guys, But in general, right, those that were in the mix, quick to tell you that they're in the mix. But so that era, though, regardless of what you think of it, that's gone. You got cats on the main line now, NF members, Mexican Mafia members that are walking around with entourages. Like the idea of, oh, let's keep them secret and let's keep your affiliation secret, it's over. And it's over by the choices that they've made, right? They're on the yard walking around with entourages. They absolutely want to be acknowledged for who they are and what they represent. And they want to be worshipped, right? They are gods to be worshipped in their eyes. And I'm sure there's individuals who would be an exception, but in general, at least in terms of the state, that's how folks are getting down. So you can kind of miss me with the whole thing of, hey, you're being taboo by even acknowledging them. They put themselves out there by and large. And another thing that's changed since they've been out is the mystique around these organizations has kind of faded. I remember as a kid in the system, not encountering any NF members, and definitely not Mexican Mafia members, because they were all validated still, right? I had an image of them, and the image was like, these are the sharpest dudes in the system. These are the most committed. These are the ones willing to make the most sacrifices and have made the most sacrifices. And they're incredibly intelligent and articulate and committed to this cause and all this other stuff that I was being taught about that I didn't even know at the time the NF actually doesn't subscribe to, but I just kind of assumed that they did, right? Because they're the big homies. And so all of that and the long arm of of either organization. You know, they could reach you anywhere, this and that. All of that was done by Northerners and Southerners. Like that reaching, 9 times out of 10, was not done by made members. Calls were made or kites were sent. But the actual ones making the sacrifices, the actual ones putting in the work, the actual ones catching the bodies, a lot of times was the foot soldiers. They reaped the benefit of it in there. This idea of, oh man, if you mess with this group of people, is, you know, they're going to stay going at it, and they can kick it off statewide, and they can do this and they can do that. The they wasn't the made members. The they was those of us that were out on the yards in the general population, you know, making moves. So now that these individuals have come out to the yards, it's probably the biggest mistake that they made, because people see them now as people, and oftentimes as incredibly morally flawed people, right? Sometimes addicted people, conniving people, you know, just hyper focused on money, willing to do whatever it takes. You know, all, you know, Northerners and Southerners are expendable, right, to these organizations. And for those that have been around, or those that kind of rose up the ranks, or whatever, you've seen that over the years, you know what I mean? But now it's on Front Street for everybody to see. And again, I'm not saying every specific individual, but by and large, this is the norm, right? The norm is abuse of power. The norm is, you know, do as I say, not as I do. And the norm is, hey, we are the law, and you guys just follow it, whatever we say. And it's crazy, and it's goofy. And there's a lot of people who don't like it. Again, I've said before, it would have been nice if the end of hostilities was really Northerners and Southerners getting together and saying, hey, look, screw these dudes, right? We don't need them. North and South coexisted in the general population of the prison system in California for a long time before this end of hostilities. So I don't want violence between Norteños and Sureños, Northerners and Southerners, on the streets or in prison. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see violence between anybody. But I'm absolutely for the unison of the gente, the people, right? The problem factor in this is the damn organizations. They're the ones that screw it up, right? It's not us. We have figured out how to get along. And sure, every now and then someone would kick off and a little blood is said, hey, it's prison. A little steam gets built up or whatever. What happens, happens. But we always circle back around, you know, and maybe that's a topic for another video. But my point is this. Is there still a danger? Sure, right? I'm sure there is. And I know for a fact that there's individuals sitting behind the wall right now that are watching these videos and will probably watch this video and will get ticked off. There's also a lot of people sitting behind the wall that are active and affiliated that will watch this video. And while they may not like that I said it, they're not going to argue with the validity of it, because the truth is the truth, okay? So is anybody untouchable in this world? No, absolutely not. And that goes both ways, right? That goes both ways. And we're seeing that on the yards. We're seeing people get touched that people didn't know. Like, I thought they were untouchable. Other groups have come and said, yeah, not so much, right? And so it's just different, right? But to my question, which I think is the bigger question, isn't it dangerous not to speak about them? Isn't it more dangerous not to speak about them? These organizations and the narrative that they push has a grip on a lot of our communities, okay? And again, I get the Northerners thing, I get the Southerner thing, I get that identity and whatnot, and I don't view Northerners and Southerners as gang members, to be quite honest, right? It's like almost cultural kind of identity, right? You know, it again, maybe that's a topic for another video, but these narratives of division, these narratives of oppression, whether it's oppressing yourself, you know, your own people, or oppressing other people, this narrative that these are sophisticated organizations that whether you like them or not, you have to respect them. And if you're coming up in the neighborhood, that's just how it goes. If you find yourself in a system, that's just how it goes. That is dangerous. I think it's more dangerous to normalize their existence. I think it's more dangerous to be quiet about the goofiness that exists within and being perpetrated by some of these organizations. That's more dangerous, because that causes harm to our communities. That's causing harm to our loved ones that are on the main line right now trying to endure. I recognize completely, and I've said it before, I have a lot of privilege, so to speak, right? Because I'm not in prison. So I can sit here and be critical, and I can sit here and point fingers, and I can sit here and judge the state of affairs as I understand them behind the wall from the luxury of my couch or walking down the street or whatever, and I don't have to deal with the repercussions of that behind the wall. And I respect that, and I know that, and I don't take that lightly. But again, these groups have influence on the streets, and they have influence over young folks. And there are still young people who hear shit like legends and want to be one. And I think that's dying down a little bit, truth be told, from what I'm hearing, which is just the people I talk to, right? Take it for what it is. That whole idea of being a big homie, quote unquote, is like, that's not appetizing to people near as much as it was when I was younger. There's a lot of folks in the streets that are like, man, these old dudes in a pen doing what they do, and could really care less, right? And try to avoid any of that stuff. Now, again, doesn't mean these organizations don't have reach, but their reach is courtesy to manpower, that same manpower that they continue to abuse. So we'll see how far that reach really goes in the long run, which is why you have organizations now getting together, right? I just think it's dangerous to turn a blind eye to them. It's dangerous to be like, nah, man, I can't challenge what you got going on, because what you have going on is harmful to my community. It's harmful to people I care about. It's not healthy. It's not helping to advance us as a people. It has no socially redeemable quality. And even the narrative and the propaganda in terms of securing main lines and this and that a lot of us bought into once upon a time, and a lot of us participated actively in once upon a time, you've done shown that doesn't make any sense either, because of how folks are rocking in there now. So that's not even a thing, right? So that was just a ploy, over the years to keep division and to keep resources in your pockets. So it was what it was. But I think it's dangerous to not speak on them, And so is it dangerous to speak on them? I guess, right? It's anytime you open your mouth, there's danger. You never know who you're talking to. You never know how what you say about somebody is going to affect them and what route they're going to want to take in responding to that. It's dangerous driving down the street, because somebody cuts you off, you tap your horn, they go take your head off, right? You just never know, right? Life is dangerous. It's about making calculated risks, Is it worth it? Is it worth it to say this? Is it worth it to do that? Is it worth it to go here? Is it worth it to not say this? And in my opinion, just for myself alone, I think that it's worth it to be critical of these organizations, because if that leads people to distance themselves from those organizations, I think that's better for the community. And I don't mean join other organizations to fight that organization, right? That's not the hype I'm on, right? It's prison gangs are unhealthy, period, point blank. No matter what you thought your reason was for starting or anything else, and I'm talking about California. We're starting for this, we started for that. It all comes down to the same thing, and everybody behaves the same damn way at the end of the day. And none of it is good for the masses, because the masses are not in these organizations. The masses don't benefit from these organizations, right? And I think that's worth it, personally. That's just my choice, right? Take it for what it is. And my goal is not to embarrass or ridicule, but when I speak about different groups or I speak about different situations, I do my very best to always come with facts, okay? And I think if you're telling the truth about somebody, man, sometimes the truth hurts. They may not like it, but hey, if you don't like it when somebody tells the truth about you, change your behavior so that they can't tell that truth anymore, right? That's called growing up. That's called maturity. Man, I don't like being known as this. Then stop being that and move up. Don't hide being that. Don't wiggle. But if you elevate in life, people will come to know you as somebody different than what you were known as before. So for those that don't like the facts that are being said about them, change your choices, change your facts, and then you change the narrative. But as long as this BS continues, there's going to be people that are going to call out the BS. And again, the truth endures, right? So, anyways, that's my little 2 cents for now. I'm working on a couple things, man, that I think you guys are really gonna enjoy. That is not in this same lane. I'm not gonna talk about this shit every day. But stay tuned, man. Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it.